Y'all ain't heard nothing like this before. Beat him in the head with this trilogy. Who dropped this for a certain demographic? Turn it up, blast it. This is gonna be a classic. Fact. Not your run of the.
Hey, paisans and gomadas, welcome to the new episode of Gangsters and Cigars. I'm your host, Bobby Bacala, and my sidekick,
Shirtless Mike. What's up, everybody?
Mike's been slinging ash all day today, pimping out the sticks over at Smoke Rings. Tonight's episode is going to be really good. It is Cuba Dos, Part 2. You remember Lou the Hammer. He's going to be on again. We're going to be speaking about the Italian Mafia and its influence in Cuba starting in 1946. Some of my family ties in Cuba as well. And then naturally, Big Lou and his family, he still has family in Cuba, where we get our Cubans from. Quick shout out before we get started and get told what's going on. Shout out to Lou Smoke Rings for letting us host our podcast every Wednesday night from here. Shout out to Big Steve Sage, you big English cunt. I love you. Bully Tattoo in DeBerry, one of the best ink slingers I know. Shout out to Tommy Law, Rock and Roll Circus, St. Augustine. Great place to hang out and buy all your rockabilly and English clothes. Shout out to Alfie and Tangiers. Alfie was on just a couple of weeks ago. Tangiers Theater, which is located in Palm Bay. Shout out to Keith Corman and Bad Influence Customs, where I get all my custom work done on my bike. Thanks for everybody's support. Thanks for y'all for continually watching us, giving us your input. Tonight we're going to do a new cigar. Mike is going to introduce it.
And what we're smoking tonight is the Knuckle Sandwich Connecticut, which is new from Espinosa. It's a continuation of the Knuckle Sandwich line. That's the Guy Fieri cigar. And let me tell you, it's a Connecticut. It's mild, but it still has a little bit of a kick to it, lots of flavor. I got quite a bit of pepper right off the bat when I first lit it.
Oh, yeah.
And this cigar just keeps getting better. You know, we've already smoked the Habano for one of the past shows, and so this just came out recently within the last month. And this cigar is definitely worth checking out. We carry 2 sizes of this here at Smoke Rings, and
we can't go wrong with an Espinosa anyway.
Yeah, most definitely.
I'm not really a celebrity cigar fan, but the Fieri Knuckle Sandwich, I really enjoyed the Habano.
Yeah.
I dig the Connecticut.
And this is a medium body Connecticut. It's not, and I say it's
not like smoking air.
Yeah, it's not smoking air. It's a medium body Connecticut. It gives you more of a kick. And the ash is holding on great. If you look at that, the way it's burning, great.
Has a nice steady burn.
It's got a nice mascara line.
It's nice and woodsy, leathery. Yep, you definitely get some pepper in here.
Yeah, the pepper was in the first, but you're right about that. I was trying to think of what I was getting, but the woodsy and a little bit of cedar too.
Oh, absolutely. You're getting it's definitely one of those earthy, crunchy type cigars. And what I mean by that is, a little bit of dirt, a little bit of leather, a little bit of cedar. It's a great smoke. I'm absolutely enjoying it. I dig the wrapper. I dig the presentation. I like the boxes too. Yeah. Boxes are pretty cool.
The bottom of it says "Made in Flavortown."
Yeah, it's just a great marketing idea. And it's not usually a heavy smoker anymore, but I figured it's a great Connecticut, man.
I told you this would be something good.
Oh no, I dig it. I absolutely dig it.
You can smoke any time of the day.
What's going on in Shirtless Mike's life, man?
Yeah, what's going on, man? Just always working. I'm going to start doing a little work on the side for a friend of mine, Rockefeller Cigars. Running the social media for him on my days off.
Man. Good for you. Shout out to Rockefeller Cigars.
I try to find some time to myself here and there and stuff, which is a rare occurrence, but I make it happen. And, I can't complain, man. Life is good.
Good.
Just enjoyed Easter with the family.
Had a blessed Easter. Spent it with the family. time to reflect on a few things, and it was nice. It was enjoyable. It was quiet. Spent some time with my son and my two daughters. My son is leaving on tour for Japan with his band, Jillian Carter. They leave next week. They come back from Japan, then they're over in Europe, and then they go to South America. So my son is living the dream. The bastard.
Hell yeah.
I taught you everything you know, Bobby. Everything you know about playing that goddamn bass. No, he's a talented kid. I'm so friggin' proud of him. I met a lot of people in Orlando that knew my son and spoke so highly of him this past weekend that, makes an old man proud, even though he may think his old man doesn't know everything, and I'll let him think that.
I think we all go through that. I'm probably your son's age. You probably go older than me, but we all go through that.
Absolutely.
Now that I'm at the age I am, I'm like, you know what? I don't know everything.
Absolutely. Got a chance to meet his girlfriend. She's badass. She's into everything vintage. She runs vintage markets. She drives an old badass El Camino. She's a really cool chick. So, I'm stoked that he found somebody like that. Anyway, enough of family, enough of catching up on Easter. You guys are listening in, and you want to hear about gangster shit. And like I promised, we're going to talk about Cuba again. We're going to do a brief little intro on Cuba, little intro and little history on the Italian mafia when they got into Cuba, their influences, introduce our guest. We're going to talk about his family in Cuba. And then, like I told you the last episode, hey, I know I don't know what my dad did a lot, but I'm going to bring you and reel you in on what my dad did in Cuba as well. All right.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Let's go.
All right, let's get started. 1946, right after World War II. Luciano, Lansky decide they need to find a mecca to start making some huge money. All the troops are back. The economy is starting to roll. The Americans are spending money again. The kids coming home from World War II. They're out spending money. They're looking to build homes in Levittown, New York, which was the VA capital and of building homes for soldiers. So there was money out there. Luciano got this idea. Shit, we can pretty much be untouched and do whatever the fuck we want outside of U.S. waters. He goes and they have a sit down with some of the families, Luciano and Batista, who was not in power at the time. The Italian family sink in $950 million to fund the bloodiest takeover in Cuba history. Batista goes in there, takes over, becomes in power. Now, he owes the Italians. The Italians promise to sink so much money into Cuba, it's going to be the pearl of the Caribbean. They start sinking money in casinos. Some of the most lavish, greatest casinos start getting built. Rat Pack starts playing there. More and more people are going, tourists are starting to hit Cuba for these casinos and nightlife. Luciano comes up with this idea with Batista and goes, look, bottom line is you owe me. I want to start moving heroin and cocaine. Batista opens up the military airfields and military ports in Cuba to the mafia to start running tons of heroin and cocaine. The United States government's not going to fuck with them right now. We just got out of a war. We're talking way before the Bay of Pigs. It's untouched. This starts rolling into the 1950s, which is the heyday of the Italian mafia in Cuba. The casinos are popping. Dope is popping. Doping is going back and forth from Cuba into the United States, overseas. In the time of the 40s, early 50s, actually, for some people that don't know, in New York City, there was huge poppy fields before they were all the government
I
came
remember
in.
you mentioning that
Yep, before the government came in and burnt everything down. Thus, Luciano needed a place to process heroin and cocaine and to move it. So they were using the guerrillas from Batista from Cuba to run their security and also operate their aircraft and their boats. The Italians said, we're not touching shit. You guys do it because we're owed to us. Cuba expands. It gets huge. More of the crime families come in. Chicago comes in. New York crime families start coming in. Lansky, who, let's face it, Lansky was the genius of the Italian mafia. Even though Lansky was Jewish, not Italian, he was the brains. The only reason why Lansky never got hit is because he made so much money for the mafia. If he got hit or somebody tried to do a takeover, Lansky, besides Luciano, was one of the most ruthless. And if anybody ever stepped out of turn with Meyer, he would have taken a couple of different pieces. You would have been out in the fucking ocean near Guantanamo. So they came in and sunk all of this money in. Every time somebody tried to move in, some other crime families, whatever, Mafia said, we don't have to do nothing. They got with Batista. Batista had his guerrillas go out. Tourists that would come in, try to rip off the casino, were never seen again. Other Italian crime families came in, were never seen again. The Irish decided, we're going to make a play. Didn't fucking work out very well. Now, getting towards the end, right? So like late 50s, before Castro decided the Italians needed to go because this was Cuban land, shouldn't be owned by anything but Cubans. What started the big takeover from Castro when he drove out the Italians, we'll get to that in a minute. I told you before, you know, my dad was friends with Sinatra. My dad used to hang out in Cuba. It was my father's favorite place to be in Cuba. Way before I was born, but my dad used to tell me stories coming up. And I always said, and I said on the last episode, okay, I'll get to talking to about my dad's connection in Cuba. And here it is. Joey Castro was the innovator and the owner of, you're not going to know who it is, Castro Convertible Furniture. They were the first couches that you could pull out into a bed.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Still in existence. Started out, they were huge in Fort Lauderdale, Miami. So my dad gets back from World War II. He meets up with Joey Castro. Castro opens up this company, and my dad becomes Joey Castro's right-hand man. The mattresses and the parts of the furniture were being made in Cuba. So my dad was negotiating deals between, when I say our people, the Italians and the Cuban government. So my dad had full reign to go into the hillsides and go to these factories to get mattresses and whatever to be brought back for Castro convertibles, right? My dad was down living in Fort Lauderdale, Miami at the time. My dad was living large and going back and forth to Cuba. That's how we got to meet Sinatra and some of them and hang out with all of them and rub elbows. Now, that's cool. The Italians, even though the Cubans were manufacturing the mattresses and parts of the couches, the Italians ran the companies. It's that simple. Everything had to go through the Italians at the time to get anything. And my dad was like a mediator. He worked out deals. He paid the Italians to go and get the parts, accessory, whatever the fuck it was, from these factories in Cuba. He'd pay off the Italians. Therefore, he was a friend of the families, and he was able to work in Cuba. This went on for years before Castro took over. And then once Castro took over, Castro came in. He raided the casinos, drove out the Italians. No bloodshed. Castro didn't come in and start wiping out the mafia because he knew the repercussions. But he gave them all fair warning. It was time to fucking leave. Time to leave, get out of the fucking country. Batista, everybody was gone. It was the Castro and his guerrillas that, were able to go in and take over. The Italians weren't in the fight. They weren't there for the fight. They lost millions and millions of dollars. They actually left millions. Castro wouldn't let them take out all their money. Castro held on to the dope. Castro held on to everything. They were told to leave the island. Then, from there, his reign, and so on and so forth. Before we go any further, I'm going to grab Hammer. We're going to talk about him, his family, the corruption that he knew as a kid, and some of the stuff that his family went through. And as a matter of fact, as we were talking prior, and Hammer as well.
Yeah.
So Hammer has a cousin that is over here now that he has to go back, that the government was after because apparently they thought basically his cousin had a car shop and was fixing cars. Because that's the thing over there is you manufacture these cars.
Yeah.
So his cousin came here for a while. I think Hammer said he's got to go back. We're going to discuss that and discuss the corruption and how they won't allow you to have your own business. Give me a moment. Hammer! That's the local intercom for us calling our guest.
Gotta make sure he can hear you, for God's sake.
I know, you deaf bastard.
Gentlemen,
Hammer, man, good to have you back, brother.
how you doing?
Good.
Oh, well.
We were just talking about, I gave a little history of my people and my father over in Cuba, and $950 million by the mafia pumped into Batista when he took over, and then actually ran out by Castro in the 50s. So what we want to talk about with you, because I know you still have family in Cuba, most of your family are here. One of the things that people don't realize, you cannot own your own business, correct?
Correct. Yeah, the government owns everything. I mean, there's nothing you can't own over there. You can't own your own house. You think you own your own house. You can't sell it because the government won't let you, unless they approve the sell. I mean, everything is owned by the government. The land, everything, businesses.
So when your parents had the house in it, they didn't actually own their house and land, correct?
Back in the day, yes. Before
Your
Fidel,
dad did, right?
Before Fidel came, yes.
Right.
Everybody owned. My grandfather owned 2 gasoline stations. He owned 4 homes. He owned a bunch of trucks, a freight company. Until he came, he destroyed everything. He destroyed 3 out of the 4 homes. Destroyed every truck. He blew one of the gasoline stations up. He just couldn't blow the other one up. He left that one alone. It was disaster when Fidel came.
So I'm sure that your dad and family dealt with the Italians as well during the 50s.
Correct.
I mean, he did. It seemed like your family prospered and did quite well under Batista.
Actually, he did.
Yeah,
My
no, it
grandfather
does sound
did
that
pretty
way.
good. I'm
Yeah.
gonna tell you, my dad did pretty good before he got here and went into the military.
Right.
So they done pretty good for themselves back in the day.
So when Castro was taken over and destroyed mostly everything that your family owned, and was there a lot of killing of citizens for not going to the side, or?
Yeah, but I mean, it was like my grandfather, my dad said that everything that moved got taken away. If you said anything, you were right there. You were done. I mean, you were shot. I mean, he shot his only nephew. I mean, he put him up to the wall and shot him. He shot his best friend, the one that came down with him from the mountains.
Yeah,
He
ran the army for him.
Yeah, he shot him. He was shooting everybody he could to have his small society.
So the tobacco industry at the time. So I understand that, and I may be wrong, I understand that Castro actually started the Cohiba factory because that was a blend that he smoked.
Exactly.
So it was for him.
It was for him. That Cohiba factory was for him. That's all he smoked at that one time, and he loved it, and that's what he...
So it wasn't for the people. It wasn't for the Cuban people.
Nothing was for the people. I remember my grandparents, my mom, when she went to Cuba back in the day, she took pictures of the supermarket. The supermarket had 3 shelves, had maybe 3 cans or 4 cans per shelf, and that was it. You got 1 chicken for a month. You got 2 or 3 pounds of rice for the whole month for the whole family, and that's what you got, and that's it. The rest was black market. Everything runs on black market in Cuba right now.
The cars,
everything. Don't matter what it is, black market. I mean, you can't own. You have, let's say, 50 cows. You can't butcher one. You're not allowed. If you get caught, you're gonna go to jail for the rest of your damn life.
For butchering your own cattle.
Yeah, a lot of people, a farmer will take them out to the field, out there where you can't see nothing, in the middle of of nothing out there, and then butcher them, and then bring them back piece by piece. So nobody will see nothing, and that's how they do it, and that's how they eat. Otherwise, they starve.
It's fucking crazy, and they call the Italian gangsters. They ain't had shit on fucking Castro's regime.
Oh man, Castro is that boy just don't play. No, he didn't play at the time, man.
No, and I know, like your grandparents and your dad and stuff talk about when those hotels and casinos were just like booming. It was like the place
my
to be.
dad and my grandfather, they used to love the casinos. They used to know a lot of the gangsters.
Oh, absolutely.
Smoke cigars with them.
Absolutely.
Have drinks with them. And talk business all the time.
Absolutely.
My grandfather used to tell my uncle, he goes like the 3 monkeys. You don't see nothing, you don't hear nothing, and we don't talk about Jack. That's the way it was. That's the way it was when I grew up.
Yeah.
You don't see nothing, you don't talk.
Oh, absolutely.
I used to have people at the house when I used to come home when I was little from school, and my mom used to tell me, just go straight to your room. And when I used to go by, sitting on the couch, was a couple of guys. You don't say nothing, like the damn 3 monkeys. So that's the way it was.
I got you. It's it's crazy because, especially this generation, but a lot of people don't realize the significance of Cuba. Not only military significance, and you're a military guy, and we're not going to get into it, but the military significance of Cuba, and then the Bay of Pigs and Russia's role. But prior to that, the significance of the economy that was in, right, wrong, or indifferent, and we were talking before you sat down that Luciano ran, tons of heroin and cocaine out of the military bases in Cuba. But the revenue from tourists and everything else was insane during the early mid-50s in Cuba. And that fact that I was asking you about the Cohiba plant, I heard about it, I did some research on it not too long ago, and I was like, fuck, this is what this guy spoke. So he opened up his own plant for himself, and, you know, fuck the workers, fuck everybody.
Yeah,
These were his cigar line,
that's exactly what it was.
which is insane. And people don't realize, you know, you get people to this day that we all love a good Cuban, but you get people saying, no, I gotta have Cubans. I gotta have Cubans, and they have to be Cohiba, and they don't realize what the origin of the Cohiba or where exactly it originated and how it originated.
One of my cousins. Well, I have a set of twins. The cousins, the identical twins. You can't tell them apart from one to the other. One's here and travels back and forth, but the other one is one of the high anarchy at the Cohiba factory. So that's where we got the connection to the Cohiba factory.
We may have one or two. I do enjoy them. I absolutely enjoy them.
So hey, it's all good, man.
It is.
He runs it like a military installation. That's what the way it is. You know, it's the military. I mean, it's Castro's. You know, Castro might not be the president right now, but there's a Castro running it.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, definitely, no doubt about it.
Absolutely. Wasn't his brother Finocho, right?
Yeah,
For those
big time.
Yeah, for those of you who don't understand what I just said in Italian, he may smoke the cigar. And I'll leave it at that. We're not a woke channel, but I'll leave it at that. You'll know what I'm talking about.
I'm used to the other words, so after I thought about it, I was like, okay, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm trying to be not like we're gonna put that on a fucking Bud Light can, but that's another story.
No. Come on,
Yeah, that's you know, his picture is not gonna be on the new Cohiba label, but that's that's another fucking
Gives a
story.
whole new meaning to pounding the tall.
Oh, absolutely, man, absolutely. So car parts, and because they'll rebuild
Anything.
They'll make an engine out of a piece of fucking wood over there.
Oh, anything.
I know, it's pretty crazy.
And they love running quarter-mile cars. I mean, they love racing up there. My cousin has a 57 Chevy with a full-blown 350. I mean, he has that thing looks gorgeous, dude. I mean, that thing runs like a banshee. They got all kind of cars there. I mean,
He still has it there?
yeah, he still has it there. He just put it all together. He just had it painted. He had the motor put in it. I mean, this thing is like vicious.
They haven't come knocking yet?
Yeah, they'll soon be knocking. The government wants their hand on everything. Remember, you got a guy in each block.
That's what I was going to
It's
ask
the
you.
committee,
Okay.
and he's the snitch of the block.
He's the rat.
Yeah, he's the rat of the block. If you don't, you got to be nice with him, because if you don't, he's gonna snitch you out in the middle of the night. You're gone. They come and get you in the middle of the night. You don't know. They don't know nothing about you no more.
So you got to pay the rat.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
You
got to
agree-
pay the man to exist.
How come he's not in some tobacco field?
Can't be touched.
Yeah, no shit, right?
Can't be touched. Because if he's touched, there's always somebody that's gonna spill the beans, and
Oh yeah.
you're done.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you're done.
So he works directly for the government?
Yeah. Yeah. He gets food from the government, and he's allowed to exist. So if he's allowed to exist and do his stuff, he's gonna snitch on anybody around.
So he does his black market shit and then turns you to fuck in so there's no competition.
Exactly.
Not a bad fucking deal, man.
Hey, it is what it is. If you can get the gig, it's good. But it's not a good thing to get the gig.
Now,
you know?
that's because we're not rats.
Yeah.
You know, that brings us back to a couple episodes that, before. We're not fucking rats, so I can't, I can't justify the shit that people do against their own people.
One of my cousins is a truck driver, and he hauls meat. So in the middle of the run, he cuts off the field. He cuts, let's say, a leg or something off of one of the cows, and he has a place inside the cab that it's hidden compartment that he hides it in there, and that's how he gets his meat for his family. He hides it in there because it'll get his truck will get inspected
Right.
when it comes back. I mean, everything gets inspected. Everything has to be to the point, and he hides it. Then when he takes the truck home after it's been inspected and everything, then he takes it out, butchers it, the rest of it, and that's how his family gets fed.
So taking a piece of meat is taken from the government.
Yeah, and if you do that, that's life imprisonment. I mean, you ain't getting out.
Life imprisonment for a piece of fucking meat.
Yeah, to feed your family.
People just don't realize, especially in a communist dictatorship like that is, you're living on their dime.
Yeah, no doubt.
And they could take that dime away at any time.
Anytime, any place. I mean, they just talk you talk to the cop the wrong. I mean, just look at them cross-eyed, and you're done.
I know we bitch and complain here about lots of things, because we've always had everything. So we feel entitled to bitch and complain. But until you live like that in a third world fucking country under somebody's,
it's a whole different ballgame.
That's insane. When did your parents come over here?
Well, right when Castro was coming, my grandfather knew that Fidel was up to no good. He knew it.
Because your grandfather had an in.
Yeah, he had a DN, and he knew that Fidel wasn't coming here to just to be the people's champion. He knew it. So he started destroying a lot of stuff, a lot of shit that he owned.
Right.
He made over 40 passports, fake passports, for people that weren't allowed to leave.
Right.
Left Cuba because of my grandfather and my dad. My dad left right before Fidel took over, and my grandfather told him, everybody leave. So everybody went to New York. That's where That's where I was born. That's where all the New York and the mob and everything.
Oh yeah. Well, because you still had connections.
Yeah.
From Cuba, and then you guys ended up in Miami, right?
Yeah, we ended up in Miami in the 60s. I came with my father first, and then my mom and my sister came after. And it was tough. It wasn't easy.
I got to tell you, and I had mentioned this before, and we have spoken about it before, but as much as he was a madman, he was a fucking genius when he opened up every fucking prison and opened up every mental institute, put them on a boat because the United States said anybody from Cuba can come here.
Yeah,
that motherfucker sent every lunatic and murderer and rapist from Cuba here.
Yeah, he did. Actually, I went there. I was a good friend of mine had a nice boat.
Right.
And me and him went to there, see if we can get our family. Well, my buddy got one of his brothers out. I tried to grab both of my cousins and it didn't work. So I grabbed one of the cousins. And then they stuck 3 guys in the boat. And I looked at all 3 of them, and I was looking at my buddy. I said, "These 3," I said, by the time we get out, they're gonna do something." So we started the boat, and we went about no more than half a mile, maybe a quarter mile out, and I turned on all 3 of them, told them to get out the boat and start swimming. And that's exactly what they did. They got out of the boat, and they told me in Spanish, because "You're lucky, because we would have got you."
Well,
and we took off because the military was right after us, and we didn't give a shit. We just took right off and put that boat on high speed and left.
Apparently, they didn't know your background, Hammer.
Yeah, buddy. They didn't realize I talked Spanish, and when they were saying, "You're lucky, because we would have got you halfway out there. You would have been swimming." I was
Well-
like, yeah, buddy.
Quarter mile, half mile, mile out. I'm pretty sure that that swim back didn't end so well.
No, it didn't.
Didn't end so well at all.
Yeah, but they broke everybody out of prison, everybody out of every asylum, every bad dude there was, and they
And-
brought them in.
You know, and I spoke about it in the past. So, the movie Scarface, the opening scene of, the fence and the tents and the shacks was the original Chrome's, and it was located right underneath I-95, if you remember, in Miami.
Yeah,
So, when Andrew came through and destroyed everything, SWAT team I was with at the time, because I don't know how many umpteen SWAT teams throughout fucking Florida were deployed to go down there and try to round up. Now, they were not all animals. Some of them were just refugees. The majority of them were. And we went down there, and it was total fucking chaos. And then Miami-Dade decided after this big influx that, hey, we don't have anybody representing the Cuban people in law enforcement. So they hire these motherfuckers who were murderers and dope dealers and rapists as cops, because how you gonna do a background?
yeah.
It wasn't until later when they started finding out what the hand tattoos signified on what crime they committed when they were in prison in Cuba. This went on, and they had a hit squad of Miami-Dade cops that were Cuban, and they were working the docks, and they were fucking murdering people left and right, and stealing dope and stealing money, and it was insanity, man, insanity, until finally, the powers that be and the government said, you got to round up these fucking motherfuckers and lock them up, put them away. And
I remember Miami-Dade police officers with their trunks wide open. With duffel bags coming out of them, yelling, and hooting and hollering because they just made a big old score.
Oh yeah,
and they wasn't going back to the police station.
No,
it was going back to wherever they were going.
No, and nobody fucked with them.
Nobody screwed with them.
The mayor at the time, and I can't remember his name. He closed a blind eye to all of the shit going on, and the head of the Metro department closed his fucking eye, and it was, at that time, it was like mid-late 80s when all the shit was going on.
Yeah, from 70-something to 80-something.
Yep.
That's, it was
yeah, because I had, because I was on the SWAT team, but it was after my stint working down there and shit and organized crime and everything else went down in 87. So I worked organized crime down south from 87 to 90. And
80 to 90. That's,
that was
flowing like
right.
Nothing.
Still the cocaine cowboy days down in Miami.
I remember
Key
when
West.
the cocaine cowboys came out of the magistrate.
Oh yeah.
I remember that.
Oh yeah. I mean, and they were slaughtering people down there like it was fucking just.
Oh, dude, the Miami River cops.
Well, that's what I was talking about.
I knew 4 out of the 5 of them.
The Miami River cops.
The last
who I was
2
talking
was
about.
Armando and his dad. They were my best friends since I was a kid. I mean, they ran and they caught him out of country.
That was
the last time.
I remember. That was Murder Inc., man.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you where they found him. They got him in Bahamas. I fucking remember. I remember that case.
All of them were my friends since I was a kid.
Unbelievable.
I knew every one of them. That's the way it was. That's the way it ran.
They were murdering people left and right. Mainly dope dealers.
Yes, that's all they were touching.
Yeah, and
touching all dope dealers.
When the Colombians started coming in and trying to take over Miami, they were slaughtering them. The Miami River cops were that was a hit squad. And you kind of want to think, and not a conspiracy theory, but you want to say to yourself, Did the local government just close their eyes to try to get rid of the new problem that came in?
No, they were.
I don't know. We're going to do an episode on New Orleans, and I trained some of the cops over in New Orleans in undercover survival and shit, but the corruption in the New Orleans Police Department almost mirrored Miami. So there was a group in New Orleans that if you made a complaint to Internal Affairs, they'd fucking kill you before you got testified for Internal Affairs. It was the first time that in U.S. history, Constitution says, and I'm just off the subject Cuba for 1 second. Constitution says that you cannot have the government police the state. Okay? Which means FBI, AT, they can't come in and take over policing. FBI took over an entire building in downtown New Orleans across from headquarters of New Orleans PD because of the corruption. It was the first time they were considering changing the Constitution because the department was so fucking corrupt. Which brings me back to Miami and the Cubans and the river cops, that there are times when, and at the same time in New Orleans, they would turn in their head. They were afraid of them, okay? And they were definitely afraid of that hit squad in Miami. They still had ties in Cuba. They were still running fucking dope. And then they started, after they were killing off the Colombians, these river cops were selling the fucking dope to the Colombians that they just got fucking killing to the other Colombian drug lords. It was insane.
They were playing all kinds of sides.
Oh, all kinds of sides. And the money was just, you go down there and you would see the most exotic fucking cars and women that were just fucking like out of Playboy or porn video. Insane. And these guys, houses, oh my God. Houses are still amazing. Still amazing. Coconut Grove and fucking Brickell and fucking Miami Beach and Mayfair and fuck, man. If you've never been, it's absolutely insane. And talking about Cuba, I haven't asked him yet, but Big Lou and I have a brother with our motorcycle club. He's a Fed. He's Cuban. He grew up in the barrio in Little Havana. Great fucking guy. He's got crazy stories of growing up in the project in Little Havana, and how he ended up going into law enforcement. I'm going to ask him. I'm not going to mention any names right now because I haven't spoken to him, but I'm going to ask him to come on because, first off, he's a funny fuck. He's about the size of that wall. But he's got great stories. I just went and partied with him a couple months ago in Little Havana. Had a blast, but he's got great stories as well. And his family stories from Cuba, which are pretty interesting as well. But going back to America's fuck ups, and you look at America and going to Castellano, which was one of the big mob bosses, and during World War II, I don't know, if you're aware or some of our fan base was aware, the United States needed help with cargo and moving cargo over to Italy and Germany. They turned to the Italian mafia, who ran the docks and shipyards in New York, and made a fucking deal with the mafia to get cargo and military surplus from here to Europe to fight the Germans. Now you talk about history and shit, you're talking about going to organized crime, and you go, All right. Well, you get the government going to one of the biggest crime entities in the United States for help. And if it wasn't for the mafia at the time, we would have never been able to move the cargo and move shipments and everything else like they did freely, because the mafia ran the fucking docks. And at the time, the government was afraid of the fucking mafia at the time. We'll get into the whole Joey Kennedy, John F. Kennedy and Robert Kennedy and shit, their father. And we'll get into that in another episode, and his connection with the fucking mob and how things were done with the unions and shit as well. That'll be for another episode.
A lot of family in the union.
Oh, fuck. But old man Kennedy was big in Cuba, too. He was one of the biggest fucking rum runners during the Prohibition.
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
and anyone.
Oh,
fuck yeah.
Yeah.
So that's for another episode, another historical event that we'll discuss, getting back to our roots on Gangsters and Cigars, talking about fucking gangsters, talking about history, and so on and so forth. I love talking about Cuba. I'm absolutely 100% wanting to go to Cuba. It was on my bucket list. Big Lou and I were going to go to Cuba right before they stopped all the travel again in Cuba. We were planning on taking a cruise to Cuba. You can still go. You got to get special paperwork to go to Cuba. I'm absolutely in, I just want to sit on a fucking corner. I want to drink. I want to have a cigar and eat, because Cuban food is my absolute fucking favorite.
That's the food.
I was talking to some new friends, and I don't think you met them yet. I'll introduce you to them. Lou will be at the birthday bash. And my friend's wife was a news reporter in Venezuela. And we were talking about culture and how this part of Florida, there really is no culture, and families don't keep the culture alive anymore. And I think that's one of the reasons why I personally love the Latino culture in Miami and South Florida, because they keep it alive. They keep the language alive, the tradition alive. There's more my people, Italians in South Florida, than there are up here, and they still have tradition and everything down there, but not like the Latinos and the Latino culture has kept alive down there, which I absolutely love. Not only being assigned there, making friends there, but it's my favorite place to go. So that's the history in a nutshell on the mafia in Cuba from 1946 through the 50s. Big Lou gave you an actual insight on what his family lost, how his family did so well, not underneath the Castro regime, how he still has family there and what they deal with on a daily basis in Cuba. His connection still in Cuba, my dad's connection in Cuba, and now you know who my old man worked for, what he did in Cuba, and his connection as far as being a mouthpiece and a middleman between the mafia and the workers in Cuba, manufacturing bedding for Castro convertibles, who are still in existence to this day.
I bought furniture.
I remember fucking as a kid, because my mother used to have the fucking plastic on all of the
on everything.
all of the furniture.
We have plastic on everything.
You couldn't sit on shit. Your ass used to stick to it in the fucking summer. I remember it. I remember it well. And my old man used to live off of Andrews, a military trail down, which well, that runs all the way through Fort Lauderdale into Miami. But on that note, thank you again to Big Lou, second time on the show. We love him. The number one hit maker on our show. The number one ranked episode was our first episode on Cuba. This is Cuba Dos. Get on it. I think this episode was more informative. We got a little bit more, dug a little bit more dirt, got a little bit more serious. I got a little bit more transparent with you. We smoked a great cigar. What are we smoking again?
Knuckle Sandwich, Connecticut.
What'd you think? You like it?
That's like Guy Fieri cigar.
Yes.
It's smooth, baby.
Yes.
It's smooth. It's good, smooth. I love it.
All I smoke is good cigar. All I sell is good
Yeah,
cigars.
baby.
And as always, one of my dearest friends in the whole world, never disappoints, and straight from Cuba, Big Lou brought us some Cubans to enjoy later on after the show. So thank you for bringing the Cubans. Thanks again to all our sponsors. If you guys want to be a sponsor, hit up Shirtless Mike or I. As you could tell, every episode we give you guys a shout out. Hopefully we can get some of these sponsors back on. The majority of all of them have been on. Good luck to Mike in his new side venture with Rockefeller Cigars. He came and paid us a visit last episode.
Yeah, last week.
Great guy.
2 weeks ago, and he came today to hang out. For a
Cool.
little bit.
Gave us some cigars. I dug the cigars as well. It was very nice of him to stop by. So, God bless. Hit us up with the likes, man. Hit us up with some comments. If you want to see us smoke a cigar, hit us up. We'll smoke that cigar. We had one person call in and wanted to smoke an acid. We did that a few episodes back. We did it front ways, back ways. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But if somebody wants to see us smoke something else, let us know. There's a topic that has nothing to do with gangsters. It doesn't have to be old gangsters. It could be new gangsters. Let us know. We'll talk about it. If I didn't do any investigations with them, I'll be more than happy to do the research or get somebody on here as well. I did promise you to do an episode on terrorism, which I was a part of. I still got some buddies that are still active in anti-terrorism. They said they will come on. It's just a matter of getting them and to see exactly what we could talk to and what we cannot talk about. I will talk about one of the biggest cases I ever worked in my career with my nephew on a terrorist case. I can't mention names. I can't do anything. I'm bound by the government, but I will tell you the history of the case and what it was about. On that note, going to end it this way. God bless. Love seeing you guys. Love coming on here on Wednesdays and talking to you and bullshitting and just being upfront and honest. And I'm going to close it like I always do. You could be either seated at the table or
You could be on the menu.
you could be on the menu.
Yeah,
Ladies and
but-
gentlemen, don't ever be on the fucking menu. God bless.